This week's lab assignment has two parts. The first is a chi-squared goodness of fit test, and the second is a chi-squared test for independence. Both of these will require patience because SPSS, unfortunately, is not capable of reading a table. Other statistical software programs can handle tables, but SPSS, nope. So a lot of our time is going to be spent coding the information so that SPSS understands the data that we're looking at. So let's start with the chi-squared goodness of fit test. So this is the example that I have in the lecture notes. So I'm going to show you how we can use SPSS to find the test statistic and p-value for the DREAM study that was in the lecture notes. So again, the context. Researchers often investigate frequency of dreaming and the ability to recall dreams. In a study, 80 subjects were observed as they slept overnight in a lab. Researchers woke each participant during REM sleep and asked them whether or not they were dreaming. The results were shown in the table that you can see in the lab. Based on previous research, researchers expected 80% of participants to recall their dreams, 10% to not recall, and 10% to be unsure. Does the researchers' data match their expectations? Run a chi-squared test for goodness of fit. So first, make sure you write down your null and alternative hypotheses. And I know we did this in the lecture part of class, but I just want to remind you that always, before you use SPSS to do anything, first step is always write down your hypotheses. Okay, so now we're going to go to variable view, and we're going to need to enter this data into the table. So in variable view, under the name column, we're going to put in dream, all right? And we're going to put in frequency. We're going to reduce the number of decimals to 0 for both of these so that we don't have unnecessary decimals running around the table, making it difficult to read. Okay, so now we're going to click on the values cell in the dream row, and we're going to be now coding the dream variable. Okay, so we want to bring up this values labels cell by clicking on the values cell and the 3 little dots that you see. So we're going to say that 1 is going to represent did recall. And we'll add that. 2 is going to represent did not recall. And we'll add that. And 3 is going to represent unsure. And then we're going to add that. And click OK. So now we've told SPSS what the variables are going to represent in that table. And now we're going to go to our data. So we're going to go to Data View. And in the Dream column, we're going to enter 1 in the first cell. For that means the first label that we did. That, remember, means did recall, and the frequency of that was 58. For the second category, which was did not recall, that frequency is 12. And in the third category, which was unsure, that frequency was 10. So now we've put our data into SPSS. Now we're going to enter our expected values. So we're going to go to the menu bar and click Data, and then Weight Cases, which remember is the very last option in this list. All right. And that brings up this dialog box. So we're going to move frequency over into the frequency variables. So we're going to weight cases by frequency, and we're going to click OK. Now we're going to go to the menu bar to analyze. We're going to go to non-parametric tests. So remember we talked about why this was called a non-parametric test. And we have to come here to legacy dialogues. At least we do in the version of SPSS I have on my computer, which I think is the latest one. If you have something that says chi-squared goodness of fit test, then go to that. But mine is hidden under this legacy dialog, chi-square. Okay. All right, so that brings up this dialog box. So we're going to move dreams into our test variable list using the arrow. All right. And then in the expected values box, all categories are equal. That would be if we expected an equal amount in each category, but we don't. So we're going to enter the values that we have. All right. So we're going to enter the values for each of them one at a time using add at the end. So for the first one, let me remember, it was 80%. So that was 64. So our first one was 64. We'll add that. And then 10%, which was 8. And we'll add that. And then the last one was also 10%. So we'll add that. Okay, so we have to put these in order, but these are expected values. And now we'll click OK. So now SPSS runs the chi-squared test. And again, here is our data table. Here's our test statistic, 3.06. And our p-value is 0.21 here. This is our p-value right here. This SPSS calls it asymptotic significance, but this is our p-value right here, and this is our degrees of freedom. And then with that information, we could write our conclusion in APA format.